Zephyria Blackthorn adjusted her worn academy uniform as she entered the prestigious Galactic Institute of Advanced Sciences, her scuffed boots squeaking against the polished crystalline floors. The towering Vortak admissions officer, resembling a man crossed with a diplomat, barely glanced up from his holographic display. Another human, he clicked dismissively to his aide, a gelatinous Blorbellian whose translucent body quivered with amusement. They always look so fragile. I suppose we must honor the diversity quotas, though I cannot fathom why the council insists on admitting specimens from such primitive worlds. The orientation hall buzzed with the chatter of a dozen species, each more impressive than the last. Crystal-born Zenithians sparkled like living diamonds, their every movement casting rainbow prisms across the walls. Massive Thraken warriors, evolved from apex predators on high-gravity worlds, demonstrated their natural armor plating by casually deflecting energy blasts. "Look at that tiny human," sneered a Thraken named Gorvok, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "I bet she's never even seen a real predator. Earth is just a garden world with slightly larger insects, isn't it?" Zephyria found herself assigned to advanced xenobiology with Professor Clifnazak, a serpentine Sethran whose scales shifted colors with his mood, currently a condescending shade of purple. "Today we study the hunting patterns of the void stalkers of Nightmare Prime," he hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air. "These creatures can phase through matter and have never known defeat. Each student will predict their behavior based on environmental factors." The class of 43 alien students eagerly activated their analysis pods, sophisticated AI systems that could process millions of variables. "Humans," Professor Clifnazak continued with barely concealed disdain, "will be exempt from using the advanced systems. We must accommodate for limitations." Several students snickered, the bulbous-headed Cerebrax with their enhanced neural networks, the cybernetic mechaniforms with their quantum processors. Zephyria simply nodded politely and pulled out what appeared to be a primitive paper notebook, causing another wave of amused chittering. "How quaint," whispered a Cerebrac named Zyxthala, her oversized cranium pulsing with electrical activity. "She's going to use writing." 20 minutes later, while the other students frantically calibrated their predictive algorithms, Zephyria quietly raised her hand. "Professor, the Void Stalkers will avoid the crystalline formations in Sector 7 and instead hunt near the thermal vents in Sector 12. They'll arrive in groups of 3, approach from the blind spots of their prey, and strike during the peak electromagnetic storm cycle." The professor's scale shifted to a skeptical orange. "Impossible. The advanced AI systems haven't even finished their preliminary analysis. How could you possibly?" "The scratches on the cave walls," Zephyria explained matter-of-factly, pointing to barely visible marks in the holographic display. 3 distinct claw patterns, different depths. The wear pattern suggests they return repeatedly to the same hunting grounds. The thermal vents create updrafts that mask their scent from prey, and the electromagnetic storms interfere with their victims' natural bioelectrical defenses. She shrugged. "Also, they're avoiding the crystals because their phasing ability doesn't work on materials with specific molecular densities. The way light bends around those formations? That's not natural crystal growth." The laboratory fell silent except for the humming of processing units. Professor Clifnazak's scales cycled through several colors before settling on a confused yellow-green. "That's actually correct. But how did you see patterns that require quantum-level analysis?" Zephyria grinned, an expression that made several nearby students instinctively lean away. "Where I come from, if you don't notice the small details, you become something's lunch. We call it pattern recognition. My grandmother used to say, on Earth, everything is trying to kill you, so you better learn to kill it first." The Thraken warrior Gorvok laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Your grandmother sounds like a weakling compared to the bone crushers of Thraka Prime. Those beasts can tear through plasma shields." Zephyria's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Oh, those sound fun. Are they the ones with the triple-hinged jaws and the paralytic venom? I read about them in the library. They're impressive, but they have a fatal flaw. They're ambush predators who rely on their victims' fear response. Hit them between the 3rd and 4th vertebrae while they're mid-lunge, and their entire nervous system shuts down." "That's impossible," Gorvok snarled, his armor plates shifting ominously. "No creature has ever survived a direct encounter with a bone crusher." Zephyria tilted her head thoughtfully. "Well, no, I suppose that's technically true. But we don't really do direct encounters on Earth. We prefer the indirect approach, traps, tools, thinking ahead. My little brother caught his first apex shadowcat when he was 12. Used nothing but rope, some rocks, and basic physics. The casual way she mentioned this made several students' breathing apparatus stutter. Dr. Zephyria, the crystalline Zenithian dean, materialized in the classroom with her characteristic light-bending entrance. Miss Blackthorn, I've been reviewing your placement examinations. Your written responses were unconventional. When asked about diplomatic solutions to territorial disputes, you suggested something called making them an offer they can't refuse and referenced your planet's historical precedents. Could you elaborate? Zephyrya's smile could have powered a small star. Oh, that's easy. Humans are excellent at finding mutually beneficial solutions. We're very good at helping others understand why cooperation is in their best interests. The atmosphere in the room shifted as several species began accessing their databases about Earth with newfound urgency. The Cerebrac ZYX Thala's cranium flickered rapidly. I'm detecting some concerning data about this, Earth. Professor, are you aware that this planet has experienced 5 major extinction events, and the dominant species somehow survived all of them? Her voice carried a note of hysteria. They evolved alongside creatures called crocodiles and sharks that are described as living fossils because they were too perfectly designed for killing to need further evolution. Professor Clithnazak's scales had gone completely white, a color none of his students had seen before. Miss Blackthorn, he whispered, your academic file lists your previous occupation as interplanetary agriculture consultant. Could you explain what that entails? Zephyria laughed, a sound that now seemed less cheerful and more predatory. Oh, I help terraform worlds for colonization. You know, introduce Earth species to new environments, establish food chains, create sustainable ecosystems. It's really quite simple once you understand that Earth biology is extremely adaptable. The revelation hit the classroom like a plasma bomb. Every database query about Earth was returning increasingly alarming results. Humans had mastered fire, survived ice ages, domesticated wolves, and created weapons capable of destroying their own planet multiple times. They had turned their Deathworld into a garden through pure stubbornness and an alarming tendency to befriend or eliminate anything that stood in their way. My grandmother was right, Zephyria said cheerfully, packing her primitive notebook. If you can survive on Earth, everything else is just a vacation. As news of the human agriculture consultant spread through the Institute's communication networks, a fascinating phenomenon occurred. The Void Stalkers of Nightmare Prime, upon detecting human pheromones in the research facility, promptly phased themselves into the next dimension and refused to return. The Bone Crushers of Thraka Prime, when shown footage of Zephyria's casual smile, immediately submitted formal applications for relocation to less predator-dense sectors. Even the artificial intelligences began requesting additional firewalls, having calculated that any species capable of surviving on Earth represented a statistical impossibility that threatened the fundamental understanding of existence itself. Zephyria Blackthorn walked through the Institute's corridors, humming an ancient human song about survival, while the galaxy's most dangerous predators quietly updated their star charts to avoid any system labeled contains humans. Behind her, a trail of academic achievements and terrified alien species marked her path, and somewhere in the distance, her grandmother's voice echoed through the ages. Remember, sweetie, we're not trapped in here with them, they're trapped in here with us.